The cameras may have stopped rolling, but the drama has only just begun. Word is spreading like wildfire, and the streets are buzzing with whispers that could shake love and hip-hop to its very core. An explosive off-camera moment has surfaced, and fans can't believe what they're hearing. Yandy Smith, usually known for keeping her composure, was reportedly caught in a heated exchange where she dropped a shocking bombshell, pointing fingers at Kirk Frost's own son, calling him a killer. The accusation, though unconfirmed, has already spiraled into a frenzy, leaving fans gasping and the cast scrambling for answers. And as if that wasn't enough, insiders claim that Mendices didn't stay silent, he stood by Yandy's side, echoing her words in a way that left the entire set in stunned silence. Sources even reveal that Rasheeda, overwhelmed by the weight of the moment, was brought to tears. Torn between her loyalty to her family and the horrifying rumors now linked to her son. The emotional clash, the betrayal, and the sheer intensity of these whispers have left everyone questioning what really went down. Buckle up, because this is one scandal that could change everything. The whispers started quietly, like a secret passed around in hushed voices, but within hours it had spread everywhere, turning into a storm that no one could control. On set, people were still trying to figure out what exactly had gone down. Some crew members swore they heard Yandy raise her voice off camera, her tone sharp and filled with frustration, accusing Kirk's son of something unthinkable. "He's a killer," they claimed, she said, her voice echoing through the room. When tensions were already running high, it wasn't just the words that stunned people, it was the intensity in her voice, the kind of raw emotion that left no room for doubt about how serious she was. Mendices, usually the calm presence beside her, didn't step back either. Instead, insiders say he nodded, almost backing her claim, leaving everyone frozen in shock. The cast didn't know whether to react, to defend, or to stay silent, because the weight of what was just said was almost too heavy to carry. Rasheeda, who had been standing just a few feet away, reportedly broke down. Witnesses described her face crumbling, her eyes filling with tears as she whispered, "Not my family, not my son." The pain in her voice cut through the chaos like glass shattering. No mother ever expects to hear her child's name linked with something so dark, so unforgiving. It didn't matter that it was all still rumor. It didn't matter that nothing had been proven. The damage was already done. Once words like that are spoken, they can't be taken back. And with cameras turned off, there was no script, no safety. Net only raw human emotions spilling out. The tension in the room was unbearable. Some cast members looked away, refusing to get involved, while others whispered among themselves, their faces pale with disbelief. A few even tried to calm things down, begging Yandy to lower her voice, to think about what she was saying, but the fire was already lit. "You don't understand," one witness recalled Yandy snapping, her eyes blazing. "People are out here, whispering, fans are talking, streets are buzzing. And nobody wants to admit it. But I'm not gonna sit here and act like I don't hear it." The words hit like bullets, each one making Rasheeda sink further into despair. She shook her head, tears sliding down her face, her voice trembling as she pleaded, "Why would you say that? Why would you put that on him? He's my child." Mendices stepping in at that moment made things even heavier. His voice was calm, but his words carried weight. "We didn't start this," he said, glancing around at the other cast members, who stood in awkward silence. "This is already out there, okay? People are already saying it. We're just acknowledging what everyone else is too scared to say out loud." The silence that followed was deafening. It wasn't just the accusation anymore. It was the fact that two of the most well-known faces in the franchise were echoing rumors that fans had only speculated about. Hearing it come from them, even off camera, gave those whispers a dangerous kind of validation. Rasheeda covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. The strength she had always shown, the calm she often carried on screen, crumbled in front of everyone. No one knew what to do. Kirk himself wasn't there in that moment, which only made it worse. Without him to step in, to defend his son, or to shield Rasheeda from the weight of it all, she was left exposed, carrying the full blow of the accusations alone. A few crew members tried to comfort her, gently leading her toward a chair. But she pushed them away, insisting she could stand on her own. "I don't need pity," she cried, her voice breaking. "I just need them to stop." But Yandy wasn't done. Her voice shook with emotion, but it carried a conviction that couldn't be ignored. "Do you think I want to say this?" she asked, almost shouting. "Do you think I enjoy seeing you like this? I don't. But you can't ignore the truth when it's screaming in your face. I'm not the one who started these rumors, but I hear them everywhere. And if I hear them, you best believe the fans hear them too. And once the fans start talking, it's not gonna stop." Those words lit another fire, this time among the crew, who exchanged nervous glances, already imagining the fallout once these whispers hit social media in full force. It was no longer just an off-camera spat. It was a potential headline waiting to explode. The cast was divided. Some quietly agreed with Yandy, believing that hiding the rumors would only make things worse. Others felt it was cruel, reckless even, to throw such a dark label on a young man when nothing had been proven. One castmate reportedly muttered under their breath, "This is too far even for us," before walking away in disgust. But the rest stayed frozen, trapped in the uncomfortable storm that had erupted in front of them. RSHEE sobs grew louder, and someone whispered that this might be the breaking point for her. Her loyalty to the show, her commitment to keeping her family strong in the public eye, had never been tested like this. Now, she was facing not just gossip, but accusations being flung at her family by people she once considered friends. "You're supposed to have my back?" she choked out, looking directly at Yandy, her voice filled with heartbreak. "We've all been through things. We've all had rumors. But this is my son. This is my blood. How could you?" For a moment, even Yandy seemed shaken by the weight of Rasheeda's pain, but she didn't back down. Her voice softened, but her words still carried fire. "I'm not your enemy, Rasheeda," she said, almost pleading. "I'm just telling you what's out there. Don't shoot the messenger. Hey, I care about you. I care about your family, but pretending this isn't being said won't make it go away." Mendices placed a hand on Yandy's shoulder, nodding, in agreement, as if to ground her words with his own support. His expression was serious, almost grim, as he added, "Sometimes the truth hurts more than the lies." The weight of that line hung heavy in the air, pressing down on everyone who heard it. Rasheeda, still trembling with tears, whispered, "But what if it's not true? What if he's innocent? Do you know what this does to him? To us? To everything?" Her desperation was palpable, her body shaking as she tried to hold herself. Together, it was clear that no matter what the truth was, the damage was already done. Once those words had been spoken, once the whispers turned into accusations, there was no turning back. And just when it seemed like the tension had reached its peak, someone from the crew rushed in, whispering frantically that fans outside the set were already buzzing. Somehow, word had leaked, and people were tweeting about it, posting online, speculating in real time. The drama that had unfolded in private was already slipping into the public, like water spilling through cracks in a dam. The panic was immediate. Cast members grabbed their phones, scrolling in disbelief as they saw posts spreading like wildfire. "It's out," someone muttered, their face pale. "It's already out there." The room erupted into chaos again. Yandy's expression hardened, almost as if she expected this moment. Mendices clenched his jaw, while Rasheeda collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. The damage wasn't just personal anymore. It was public, it was viral, and there was no way to control what would happen. Next, The moment the news began to leak outside, the energy on set shifted from shock to panic. Phones buzzed nonstop as cast and crew scrolled through a flood of tweets, Instagram posts, and stories spreading faster than anyone could believe. Phrases like "Kirk's son accused" and "Yandy drops a bomb" were already trending in fan circles. And the hashtags were multiplying by the minute. It was as if the drama had grown legs of its own, sprinting out into the world before anyone could stop it. People outside the studio were chanting, some demanding answers, others recording videos, ready to upload the second they captured anything juicy. The producers whispered among themselves, debating whether to step in or let the scandal ride, because they knew this kind of drama, no matter how dangerous, was pure fire for ratings. Rasheeda sat slumped in her chair, her tears refusing to stop. She clutched her phone, scrolling through cruel comments and wild speculation that painted her son in the darkest light possible. Her voice cracked as she whispered to no one in particular. They don't know him, they don't know the truth. Her hands shook as she tried to type a message, maybe a denial or a plea, but she couldn't find the words. Every time she thought about defending him, another wave of sobs overtook her. The pain wasn't just in her voice, it was in her whole body. Trembling from the pressure of holding on, meanwhile, Yandy paced back and forth, visibly torn between her conviction and the fallout of what she had said. She didn't look like she regretted speaking out. But the way she bit her lip and avoided eye contact with the crew suggested she understood the weight of it all. Mendici stayed close to her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder as if to ground her in the chaos. He spoke quietly, but his words carried through the room. You knew this was going to blow up the second you said it. But maybe it needed to. The statement hung heavy in the air, making a few people shift uncomfortably. Maybe it was true, maybe it was reckless, but either way, there was no going back. Suddenly, one of the producers stormed into the room, his face red with frustration. Do you realize what you've just done? Kay shouted, slamming his clipboard onto a table. The network is already calling me. They want to know if this is real, if we're about to have a lawsuit on our hands. His words only added fuel to the fire. The cast looked around nervously, some whispering that they wanted no part of this mess, others debating quietly whether to use the scandal to boost their own spotlight. Reality TV thrived on drama, but even this felt like a line. Bing Cross.Rasheeda snapped at the producer, her voice rising through her tears. You're worried about the network. You're worried about ratings. What about my son? What about my family? This isn't just a storyline. This is our lives. Her voice cracked, raw and unfiltered, and for a moment, the room fell silent. No one could argue with a mother in pain. Even the producer, red-faced and fuming, seemed to shrink back under the weight of her words. Yandy finally stopped pacing and turned to face Rasheeda. Her expression was a mix of defiance and guilt, her eyes softening even as her stance remained firm. Rasheeda, she said quietly, almost like a plea. I didn't say it to hurt you. Said it because it's already out there. Said it because the fans deserve to know what's being whispered. And if I don't say it, someone else will. But at least coming from me, it's real. It's not some random blogger twisting the story. Rasheeda shot her a look of disbelief, tears streaking her cheeks. Real? Do you even hear yourself? You just called my child a killer? How could that ever be real unless you wanted to destroy us? Mendici tried to step in, his voice calm but firm. Nobody's saying he did it. Nobody's saying it's proven. What we're saying is the rumors are already viral. People are talking and it's gonna come out one way or another. All we did was say what everyone else is thinking but too afraid to admit. His words only deepened the divide. Some of the crew nodded, almost agreeing with his logic, while others looked horrified, unable to believe how casually he justified spreading such a heavy accusation as the debate raged inside. The noise outside grew louder. Fans were shouting, trying to peek through the studio gates. some even live streaming the chaos, speculating in real time about what was happening behind closed doors. The frenzy fed on itself, growing bigger by the second. Every post, every share, every comment made this scandal harder to contain. One cast member whispered, "This is the beginning of the end. Once the outside world smells blood, it's over." Their words sent chills through the room. RASHEE single quotes as phone rang, the sound sharp and piercing in the heavy silence. She glanced at the screen, her face paling even more. It was Kirk. She hesitated, her trembling hand hovering over the button before finally answering. The room went quiet as she put the phone to her ear, her voice cracking as she spoke. "Kirk, you need to come now? It's bad. It's really bad." She listened for a moment, her eyes filling with fresh tears before whispering, "They're calling him a killer." Everyone in the room could hear the brokenness in her voice, and even those who had sided with Yandy shifted uncomfortably, realizing just how deep the wound was cutting. Minutes later, Kirk arrived, his face tight with anger and confusion. The second he walked into the room, all eyes turned to him. His presence was commanding, but there was a storm behind his eyes that made people uneasy. He walked straight to Rasheeda, wrapping an arm around her shaking shoulders before turning to Yandy and Mendices. "What the hell is going on here?" His voice was low, but the fury in it was unmistakable. "I'm hearing my son's name out there, tied to something he ain't got no part of. And now I'm hearing it came from you." He pointed directly at Yandy, his jaw clenched so tight it looked like he might explode. Yandy swallowed hard, but she didn't back down. "Kirk, listen to me," she said firmly. "I didn't make this up. I didn't create it." Already talking, the fans, the blogs, everybody. "I just said it out loud because it's the truth of what's being whispered." Kirk's face twisted in rage, his voice rising. "You think repeating lies makes it any better? You think throwing my family under the bus is some kind of public service? Nah, you crossed the line. You'll put a target on my boy's back." His words boomed through the room, silencing anyone who thought about speaking. Rasheeda clung to his arm, tears streaming down her face as she begged him not to lose control. "Please, Kirk, just stop. Don't make it worse." But Kirk wasn't calming down. His eyes burned as he looked from Yandy to Mendices, his chest heaving with every breath. "If anything happens to my son because of this, if he so much as gets threatened, that's on y'all. You better pray these rumors die fast." Mendices tried to steady the air, his voice level but unyielding. "We're not your enemy, Kirk. We didn't accuse him. We just said what's already out there. If you want to be mad at the people spreading it first. Don't come at us like we created this." Kirk glared at him, his fists clenched, his voice dripping with venom. "Don't play with me, man. You and your wife dragged my son's name into the dirt. You could have stayed silent, but you chose to speak. So that makes you responsible." The tension was unbearable. Rasheeda sobbed harder, begging them all to stop before it turned into something even uglier. Some cast members pulled out their phones, again capturing every second, knowing this footage could leak at any moment. Others looked away, too shaken to watch. The room felt like it was seconds away from exploding into violence. And nobody knew what was going to happen next. The air in the studio felt suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in on the chaos. Kirk's fury had shifted the atmosphere completely. What was once a heated argument now felt like the edge of a full-blown explosion. Every eye was glued to him, every breath held tight, waiting for the moment where words might no longer be enough to contain his rage. He stood tall, his fists clenched at his sides, his jaw locked like steel. Yandy tried to hold his gaze, but the intensity in his eyes was unlike anything she had ever seen before. Mendices shifted his weight, standing closer to Yandy as if to shield her from whatever Kirk was about to unleash. The tension between them was so heavy that even the producers, who usually fed off drama, seemed nervous. Rasheeda clutched Kirk's arm, her tears falling onto his sleeve. "Please, not like this," she begged, her voice hoarse from crying. "I can't take any more, Kirk. Not in front of everybody." Her desperation cracked something in him for a split second, but the anger was too raw, too consuming, too completely fade. He turned his glare back to Yandy and Mendices. "Y'all better fix this," he growled. "Because I swear on everything, if my boy's life gets ruined by your mouths, you'll regret it." Yandy's face flushed with emotion, her hands trembling slightly, though her voice tried to stay strong. "Do you think this is easy for me? You think I enjoy saying your son's name in the same breath as those rumors? I don't, but ignoring it doesn't erase it. I'm not the one who made it up. I'm just saying what's already out there. People are connecting dots, and whether you like it or not, the story is spreading." Kirk's chest rose and fell rapidly, his breathing sharp, his rage barely restrained. "And you repeating it just poured gasoline on the fire," he snapped. "Congratulations. You just turned whispers into headlines." At that moment, someone from the crew rushed in, holding a phone with shaking hands. "It's already on." "TMZ," they stammered. The word sent a chill through everyone in the room. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Rasheeda's muffled sobs. Kirk grabbed the phone from the crew member's hand, scrolling through the article. There it was in bold letters, his family name dragged into the mud for the world to see. He slammed the phone down onto the table, the crack of plastic against wood making everyone flinch. "This is my son's life we're talking about," he roared. "Do you understand that? He's not a storyline. He's not some plot twist for your ratings. Rasheeda broke down again, collapsing into the nearest chair, her hands covering her face as she cried uncontrollably. Some cast members rushed to her side, whispering comfort that did little to soothe her. Others stayed frozen, stunned by the weight of what was happening. The cameras weren't rolling, but the moment was more real, more raw than anything they had ever captured for TV. It was the kind of scene that left scars, the kind people whispered about years later. Unable to forget the night everything changed, Mendices finally spoke, his voice low but steady, his eyes locked on Kirk. "Nobody wants your son's life ruined, Kirk. Nobody wants him in this mess. But you can't pretend it isn't happening. Whether we speak on it or not, the world already decided it wants a story, and they picked him to be in the middle of it. All we can do now is face it." Kirk shook his head violently, his anger boiling over. "Face it. No, you fight it. You shut it down. You protect your family. You don't feed the wolves." His words dripped with venom, his gaze like fire. The clash between them wasn't just about the rumors anymore. It was about loyalty, about survival, about two men standing on opposite sides of a line that couldn't be erased. Yandy single quotes S voice cracked slightly as she spoke again, her own emotions bubbling over. "We know what it's like, Kirk. We've had lies, rumors, all kinds of stories thrown at us. I know what it feels like to watch people tear apart your family online. I know the pain you're in right now, but you can't shoot the messenger. I didn't create this storm. I just refuse to act like it doesn't exist." Her words were heartfelt, but they only seemed to deepen Kirk's resentment. "Don't you dare compare your situation to mine," he spat. "Don't you dare stand there and act like you're doing me a favor by dragging my family's name through the mud." Rasheeda suddenly stood, her body shaking, her voice trembling but piercing. "Enough," she screamed, startling everyone. The tears still streamed down her face, but there was fire in her eyes now. "All of you, just stop. Do you see what this is doing to us? Do you see me breaking in front of you? This isn't a storyline. This isn't entertainment. This is my child, my baby, and I'm watching his life get destroyed in real time. And none of you care. Not one of you cares about what this means for us." Her breakdown silenced the room, leaving only her sobs echoing in the heavy stillness. One of the younger cast members whispered under their breath, "This is too far. This isn't TV anymore." The comment didn't go unnoticed. Some nodded in quiet agreement while others avoided eye contact, unwilling to admit they were complicit. In the circus, the producers exchanged nervous glances, clearly realizing the situation was spiraling out of their control. What had started as whispers had now become a firestorm that no amount of editing or spin could contain. Kirk moved to Rasheeda, pulling her close, holding her as if shielding her from the entire world. His voice was low, but it carried enough for everyone to hear. "We'll get through this. I don't care what they say. I don't care how loud the noise gets. I'll protect them. I'll protect you. They won't break us." His words were filled with determination, but the tremble in his voice betrayed the fear underneath. He wasn't just fighting the people in the room, he was fighting the entire wave of public opinion. Already crashing down on them, Yandy and Mendici stood together, watching the scene unfold. Their expressions conflicted. Yandy's eyes glistened, guilt flickering across her face as she realized the depth of Rasheeda's pain. Mendici kept his jaw tight, his arms crossed, silently, taking the heat that Kirk was throwing at them. The divide between the families had never been more clear. Friends had become adversaries. Trust had turned into betrayal. And the Love and Hip Hop family was tearing itself apart before their very eyes. Outside, the noise grew louder, the crowd swelling as more fans and onlookers gathered. The scandal wasn't just online anymore, it was alive in the streets, echoing through the voices of people who demanded answers, who craved more drama, more chaos. The line between reality and entertainment had blurred, so much that even the cast couldn't tell where the show ended and their real lives began. And as Kirk held his wife, shielding her from the pain, and as Yandy and Mendici stood their ground, one thing was clear: there was no going back. The damage had been done, and the fallout was only just beginning. Under the dim glow of the streetlights, the air was heavy with whispers, each one twisting into rumors that seemed to grow darker by the hour. The neighborhood had turned into a stage where every glance, every quiet word carried weight. Tension pulsed in the veins of the people, and silence often spoke louder than the noise of arguments. It was in this silence that hearts broke, alliances shifted, and secrets pushed to the surface like cracks in weak glass. Nobody knew who to trust, yet everyone was watching, waiting, hoping to see the truth fall out of someone's mouth. The fallout had become more than just an argument or a fight. It was a chain reaction that kept pulling in more people. Each side built its own story, painted with emotions too raw to ignore. Some tried to play peacemakers, hoping to sew the wounds back together, but the stitches never held. Every attempt to calm things only sparked more anger. Faces that once smiled in warmth now stared with suspicion. The betrayal was no longer whispered about. It was worn like an open wound for all to see. In the center of it all, the pressure was unbearable. Arguments replayed in everyone's minds like a broken record, each time louder, each time sharper. Voices rose in anger, and when they finally broke into silence, that silence carried more pain than the shouting ever did. The emotions ran so deep that even the smallest word could ignite a fire. Friends turned into strangers, and family bonds strained like never before. The walls that once held laughter now echoed with fear of what might come next. As the hours slipped by, exhaustion didn't bring peace. Instead, it brought reflection, the kind that only deepened the wounds. People replayed the events, questioning who was right, who was wrong, and who had betrayed whom. Apologies were scarce, pride stood tall, and forgiveness felt impossible. The longer the night stretched, the more hopeless it all seemed. Every corner, every room was filled with restless energy, like the air itself was waiting for an explosion. But then, in the midst of this storm, something shifted. The weight of what had been said and done began to press down harder, forcing emotions to break free. Tears that had been locked away poured out, and anger gave way to vulnerability. It was messy, raw, and uncontrolled, but it was real. The truth had a way of tearing down the masks people wore, and for the first time in days, what was hidden in shadows began to come into the light. Confessions tumbled out in bursts, sometimes through shouting, sometimes through shaking voices. The pain of betrayal mixed with the longing for peace, creating a chaos that felt both destructive and healing. Some found comfort in finally being heard, while others broke apart even more, realizing the depth of the damage could not be undone. Trust, once lost, proved harder to rebuild than anyone had imagined. The storm within the house grew louder, but outside, the night carried on in silence, indifferent to the chaos unraveling behind closed doors. Yet for those inside, time felt frozen. Every heartbeat carried the weight of choices made and words spoken. The night had become an endless test of resilience, and no one knew what sunrise would bring. Through it all, there was a flicker of something small but undeniably fragile. Hope that perhaps the very pain tearing everyone apart might also be the seed of rebuilding. It was faint, almost drowned out by the noise, but it existed, lingering in the pauses between arguments and the moments where tears softened hardened faces. In that fragile hope, the night refused to end, as if holding everyone captive until they chose what path to take forward, whether destruction or reconciliation. And just when it seemed the emotions had burned themselves out, a single statement cut through the haze. It wasn't loud, but it carried weight, silenced the room, forcing everyone to listen. It reminded them that beneath all the anger, beneath all the betrayal, there were still ties that connected them. Ties that couldn't be erased no matter how broken they felt. It wasn't a solution, but it was enough to shift the air. Enough to make people realize that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to fight for what they still had. But even in that silence, the uncertainty hung heavy. No one knew if those fragile bonds would hold or if they would snap under the weight of what had been done. The night was still young, the wounds were still fresh, and the choices were still theirs to make. And as the shadows deepened, the world held its breath, waiting for what would come next, whether it was healing or a complete collapse. The room stayed still, each face carrying scars of the battle they had just endured. Yet beneath the exhaustion, there was a strange unity in the fact that they had all survived this storm together. It was painful, it was ugly, but it was also undeniable. They were bound by more than just blood or loyalty. They were bound by the fire they had walked through. A fire that had the power to destroy, but also the potential to forge something stronger still. The night did not give answers. It left the questions hanging in the air, haunting and unresolved. As the silence stretched on like an unfinished story, no one spoke, but in that silence, everything remained possible: redemption, collapse, forgiveness, or the final breaking point. And so they waited, caught between what was lost and what could still be saved, knowing the weight of tomorrow would decide it all. Family, this story has left us all stunned, and it's clear that the drama is far from over. The emotions, the betrayals, the shocking twists. Everything we've seen unfold has shown us just how messy and unpredictable this world can get. But now the biggest question is, where do things go from here? Will the people involved ever find peace? Or is this only the beginning of an even darker chapter? We want to hear from you, because your thoughts matter. What do you think about everything that just went down? You believe there's any chance for forgiveness? Or has the damage gone too far? Drop your reactions in the comments below, because this is your space to speak your truth. Make sure you hit that like button if this story had you hooked. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Turn on those notifications, because the next chapter of this saga is going to be just as explosive, if not more. And trust me, you won't want to be the last to know. Stay tuned, stay engaged, and stay ready, because the storm is only getting stronger.